What up, YouTube? Welcome to my channel. I'm Anthony TV. Look, do me a favor, guys. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for me, man. Like this video and drop a comment if you got a comment. You already know I appreciate your support. So look, check this out. I get asked this question a lot, right? And I'm gonna talk about it and just give you guys my opinion and my perspective and what I think when it comes to what company you should work for. Specifically what food service company you should work for. All right, so here's my take on it, man. Obviously all food service companies aren't created equal. I think we all would agree to that, at least all of you guys that are in the food service game, and some of you that may have worked for multiple food service companies. I think we all can agree that all food service companies aren't created equal. And what I mean by created equal, you got some food service companies that pay more than others. You got some food service companies that have better equipment than others, right? More reliable equipment. You have food service companies that have better management than others, etc., 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 right? We can go down the list about the differences between the food service companies. But I think some things you have to consider when you're talking about applying for these food service companies, which one you should work for, is going to depend on a few different things, right? First and foremost, depending on where you live, you may not have the option to work for every food service company. I know me, where I live, there are some food service companies that aren't in my area, right? We don't have a McLane here. What else? We don't have a Reinhardt where I live. Now, there is one about 45 minutes away from me, a drop yard, but we don't have that here. We don't have Martin Brower where I live. So there are a few different food service companies that I couldn't work for simply because they're not in my area. So I think first and foremost, you have to look at that. You have to look at what food service companies are in your area. Then you have to look at, okay, which one of these companies pay the most? If that's what you're thinking about, right? You're probably gonna ask yourself that question. Okay, which one of these companies pay the most? So if your focus is on the pay, you got to look at which companies are the bigger companies. Because let's be honest, when you look at a company like Sysco, for example, Sysco is the #1 company in the food distribution industry, right? So with that, they have a ton of customers, a lot of customers, which means they have a lot of volume that they can produce and put out. So if you're in this food service game, a lot of your money comes from the amount of cases that you're delivering. Now, depending on your pay structure and how you get paid, some companies may pay by the hour, some companies pay component pay, right? Which is, you got to factor in several different things. Stop pay, case pay, mileage pay, those sorts of things you have to factor, that overall determines your pay. So if you're looking at it from a volume standpoint and getting paid based on the amount of cases you're putting out there, then a company like Sysco would definitely be, or should be, on the top of your list if you want to have the volume and the work, right? If you don't mind delivering a ton of cases, if you don't mind going to a lot of stops and things of that nature, then Sysco would definitely, or should definitely, be at the top of your list. All right, so you have to look at that. If you want to go to a company to where you may have, moderate case count going out, you may not be delivering to quite as many customers as you would like a Sysco driver would deliver to, then you want to look at some other companies, right? You know, maybe like a Cheney Brothers or a Gordon Food Service, even a Ben and Keith or a company like that, depending on where you live, right? Depending on where you live, because some areas are, you know, a little bit more populated than others. But for the most part, a lot of these companies may not be taking out as many cases as, say, like a Sysco or US Foods, right? Like I said, Sysco and US Foods, you could throw US Foods in there. These are big companies, all right? A lot of customers, a lot of volume. So if you're talking about money and, man, where can I make the most money at? You want to look at, first and foremost, well, how big is the company? I think you got to look at that first and foremost. McLane, that's another good one. If you're looking at volume and how big the company is. So just do your research, guys. Do your research and figure out what companies you have in your area. Some other companies that we don't have where I live: Papa John's, Domino's. Both of those companies right there, good paying jobs, good companies to work for if you're talking about money. So if you have all these different companies where you live, then you got a tough decision to make, because you got a lot of good options out there. So you really just got to sit down, do your research, go on YouTube, see what videos you can find of people that are working for these companies. That will help you make your decision as well. And ask questions, man. Ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Ask as many questions as you need to form a good decision, because you're the one going to be working for this company. But I think when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you really just have to figure out what you want out of the company, what's most important to you: pay, work-life balance, equipment. Are those some things that you look at when determining what company you should work for? If it is, then that's what you have to figure out. So again, go on YouTube, which you're on right now, and look for channels and drivers that are working for these companies that may be out here producing content that you can look at. I know for a fact you have drivers making content that work for Domino's. I'm not sure if I've seen a Papa John's driver yet, but I definitely have seen a couple of Domino's drivers making content. Just search and do your research. Obviously, you know, you got Sysco drivers out there, you got PFG drivers, you got me, I'm a Gordon Food Service driver, you got other Gordon Food Service drivers dropping content, you got Cheney Brothers drivers dropping content. Shout out to RLC TV, shout out to Brooklyn Downs TV, I see you out there. So you got different people out there making content. US Foods, who else? Sigma drivers out there making content. So you just got to figure out what company you want to work for and what things matter to you. Put it all together. If they check off your box, go for it. If you don't have a company in your area that you really want to work for, then you may have to move. Or if it's, you know, an hour away, then you have to figure out whether or not you really want to take that drive every day, if it makes sense to you. But those are some things that I would look at when it comes to what company to work for. There are a lot of good companies out there. So with all that being said, guys, you can make good money at just about any food service company you go to. But when it comes to what food service company you should work for, you really have to look at what options you have available in your city. Because again, not all food service companies are in every city, in every location, right? They're spread out across the country. So you got to look at the companies that are in your city and then go from there. Like, I wish we had a Papa John's. I wish we had Domino's. I wish we had a Hungry Howie's. Like, I wish we had all of that in the city where I live. But, you know, this city isn't big enough for that. So I have to go with what I have in my city. We don't have a Gordon Food Service here either. So I travel 50 minutes to another state to work for Gordon Food Service. And for me, it's a good decision, right? You have to look at that. you may be in the same situation where you have a company that's 50 minutes or an hour away. You just have to figure out whether or not you're willing to take that drive, especially with the gas prices now. If you're gonna be traveling that distance 5 days a week, fortunately for me, I only travel that distance twice a week because I'm on a 2-day route, so I lay over. So I'm only going that distance twice a week. For somebody that's local and home every night, you'll be traveling that distance every day. So you have to figure out, not only from a financial standpoint, do it make sense, but also, are you willing to take that commute day in and day out after running a route? So those are some things you got to ask yourself. All right. But again, guys, don't be discouraged if there's a food service company that you really want to work for, not in your area. There are still other options out there, other alternatives that could be just as good. So don't be afraid to take a risk and take a chance on another company. All right. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Look, remember, man, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for me. Like this video. Drop a comment if you got a comment. Until next time, I'll catch you guys on the next one, man. Y'all take care. Peace.